Hi everybody, welcome to this week's video. One of the ugliest places on earth, beaches of California. This video is a couple days late, and we've been doing a lot of traveling. We're in Sedona for a month. Went to Las Vegas for a night, and then we were in Santa Barbara, and now we're here. I'm actually not sure where here is. About 5 hours north of Santa Barbara. And it's been a really beautiful, a really crazy journey. A lot has happened. And there's something that I wanted to talk about for today's video, and it's on the theme of risk, the theme of taking chances. So my mother actually, as I'm traveling around over here, my mother just took a trip herself. She went to Ireland. And my girlfriend Shannon, her last name is Fitzgerald. And while my mom was in Ireland, she came across the story of the Fitzgeralds, and she wanted to share that with us. And she said that the Fitzgeralds and another family or clan, they were in a feud, and that feud had been going on for a long time, for many years. And eventually the feud was going, and it broke out into like an all-out war. They're having like a battle. And the Fitzgerald side started to win the battle, so the other family retreated, and they, went back to their house, or castle, or whatever it was. And they, closed the doors, and they all went inside, and they hid, and the Fitzgeralds came, and they surrounded them. And the head of the Fitzgerald clan said, "I want peace. I'm done with this." And he was on the side, it was like the side that was winning, but he said, "I want peace." And the family inside the house, they're all shut in, they're afraid. And they said, "Oh, we don't know, we don't trust you. You're just trying to trick us to open the doors to come in and kill everybody." And he said, "Okay, you wanna sign? Cut a hole in the door, and I'll stick my arm through the door, and I'll shake your hand." And they did it, and he stuck his arm through the door, and they shook his hand. And in that gesture, he sealed peace. And there's a saying, and that saying is to risk an arm. And that's actually where the saying comes from, is he risked his arm to make peace, because they could have then just chopped off his arm when he stuck it through the hole. But he said, I want peace, and I'm willing to risk this arm to really create this peace. When I've been reflecting on this trip that I've been on, which has been filled with everything, right? I mean, I think I'm showing you more of the beautiful sights, but it's also difficult. It's hard to be in a car for so long, to do so much driving, to be so unsure about what's happening. But there is also the beauty. There is this amazing place that I find myself right now, right? The last couple videos in Sedona, sitting in these beautiful red rocks. And we still even have another month of traveling to do, and different places we'll be going. For all of this to happen, for all of this to have happened, I had to risk. There was an element of risk involved that I had to jump in. I had to take a chance. I didn't know how it would turn out, but I gave it a shot. I'm giving it a shot. As I'm speaking to you right now, the shot is happening. I'm giving it a shot right now. And that's something that's needed in life always to move forward. We have to let go of the old things to create new things. We have to let go of the familiar to create the unfamiliar and the exciting. That Tony Robbins, when he speaks about the basic human needs, he said, one of them is certainty, but then the second most basic human need, he said, is uncertainty. Is that you need variety, you need new things to come in, right? We need growth and challenges and change. And oftentimes we strive to create a bit of a routine. We strive to create lives that feel safe, that feel familiar, that we know how to navigate within. We know where to get all of our needs met. We know where to get our money. We know who's giving us love and affection, and where friendship is, and where our fun is. That we create lives that look a very certain way to get all of our needs fulfilled within that life. But those lives can oftentimes turn into prisons. They oftentimes can turn into boxes, and we're just running through the motions. That we're not really feeling that sense of being fully alive. And this is not for everybody, right? So I'm not making this as like a general, broad. A lot of people are very content in their life. They know they're exactly where they need to be. They're doing exactly what they need to do. But I'm saying oftentimes, and it's not even necessarily some people, I've had times in my own life that I was in the monastery for 8 years, I didn't necessarily need to stay there for 8 years. I probably could have just done like 6.5, 7. But that last year was because it was just so familiar. It was really hard for me to fully remove myself from that situation because I had built up a life that was very safe, but it was becoming stagnant. And eventually the difficulty for me of staying in a stagnant place outweighed the fear of letting go and jumping in, so I did it. This trip, it had a lot of those same elements. I was back in Boston for 3 years, teaching meditation, giving healings, making a name for myself, right? Getting out in the world, building up a life for myself. But I also really felt this isn't where I want to be. And I had to let go of a lot of things to come on this trip. I was teaching meditation at MIT, one of the most prestigious universities in the world. I was teaching in Blue Cross Blue Shield in the Prudential Center. So this is like a really great, prestigious corporate office. I was teaching in schools, leading retreats for teachers. I was in different towns. I was making a living doing my work, doing my purpose. I had a life built out for myself. And that was all, on my own back. That was through all the efforts that I had been giving. But it wasn't really where I wanted to be. It wasn't the place that I wanted to be. I love all the people in Boston. I really love it as a place, but there was something inside of me that felt like I need something else for the next step. I need something else to grow. I need something else to move forward. And so I went on this trip as a bit of a scouting mission to see, where I want to go, where I want to be, what I want to do. And that step of jumping out of my comfort zone, jumping out of the familiar, that's what allows me to be sitting today in a beach. As cliche as it is, there's literally right now whales jumping out there. I'm watching kind of the tails going up and slapping, and that I'm sitting on a beach in California watching whales, right? Whereas like a month ago I was sitting in Lawrence, Massachusetts, not watching whales, not on a beach, not very happy with my situation, right? But I took a risk, I took a step, and I didn't have all of the resources that I would have liked for this step. Right, like I said before, like financially, I'm going into debt for this, right? This trip is on a piece of plastic called my credit card. I don't necessarily know how I'm going to pay that debt back to then move out here after kind of this whole trip is over and find the place. There's a lot of things that I'm still not sure how they're going to work together, but I trust they're going to work together. Things always work out. Things will work out if you just keep trying. If you keep at it, they will work out. You trust yourself to figure it out, and they will. But this element of risk, this element of jumping in, trying things out, as prepared or unprepared as you are, but simply to try to be fully happy and to be fully alive. And that risk can look many different ways. If you're in a relationship, maybe there's a conversation that you really need to have with your partner that you've been putting off because you're afraid maybe they're going to get angry, maybe they'll leave you, maybe something will happen. But sometimes by not speaking things out in relationships, it starts to breed resentment. It starts to breed discontentment that we feel in relationships, our partners very clearly, and oftentimes, even if we're not saying something, they feel something's off, or you both feel something's off, and it creates a lot of misery, right? Sometimes you need just to say, I'm sorry for something, or you need to tell them, I need you to apologize for this thing that you did because it really hurts me, right? Sometimes speaking out, it's a risk. It's scary to use our voice often. Right, it's scary to speak out. I was watching a couple weeks ago the Supreme Court hearing where Brett Kavanaugh was trying to come into office, and Dr. Ford stood up and she spoke this testimony of how he sexually abused her, and the courage that it must take somebody to stand up and speak out a trauma, something that most people hide and feel ashamed of, in front of TVs, in front of cameras, in front of senators and people questioning you, was it really him or not? I mean, crazy disrespectful questions to ask somebody who's saying I was sexually abused. But the courage to do that, it brought all of this attention to the situation. It brought all of this attention to the fact that, we're still doing the same thing again. Women's voices are still getting suppressed, right? That part of our society is still not able to speak out and be trusted and believed and supported, right? That we are still in an old system, and the mobilization of all of these women to go and to speak out. And eventually he did get confirmed, but I wouldn't say that was like a total loss. I think that it needed to happen, I guess, because people still needed to see, yeah, we're still stuck in some paradigm. We're still stuck in an old structure that doesn't work. And it's just making it visible, and it's building the outrage, and it's building the clarity, and it's building the movement. And hopefully it's going to build up the momentum for more people to go out and vote and start to kind of shift the dynamics and the power structures of the country, right? And sometimes like things that are difficult and hard need to happen for that to take place. And oftentimes it starts with an act of defiance, right? An act of defiance. If you think of Tiananmen Square, if you think of how the Berlin Wall eventually came down, there was actually this old woman who walked up to the wall, and the guards came and they're like, get away from the wall. And she was like, I'm old, I'm gonna die soon anyway. If you're gonna shoot me, go ahead and shoot me, but I want to stand at this wall. I want to see if I can get across this place. And all these people started swarming up, and then eventually it kind of like ended up in the wall breaking down. And if you go through history, whether you're talking about Gandhi or Martin Luther King, or again, many cliche, I guess, names for people that brought peace, but there's a lot of similar formulas in terms of they stood up, they put themselves out there, they were brave. And bravery has many different faces and forms. There's actually a famous story of Nelson Mandela, who was in South Africa working for peace, and this was after apartheid ended and he was freed from jail, and he took an office in South Africa and started helping to lead the country, that he was actually in a plane, and that plane was experiencing turbulence, and he was sitting there with his newspaper, and the plane started experiencing immense turbulence, and everyone in the plane was screaming. And I think there was like a reporter, a friend on the plane with him, and as all this was happening, Nelson Mandela just sat there with his paper reading. And eventually the plane landed safely, and everyone was like, oh my God, so thankful and just totally shaken. And the man went up to Nelson Mandela and he said, it was amazing that you, in the face of that plane ride, that it didn't scare you. And Nelson Mandela looked up at the man and he said, I was terrified, but then I thought there's nothing that I can do. So I just kept reading my paper. And we often think that courage and bravery and fearless action means that we are without fear. And that's not the case. Fear and fearlessness, they're similar but different. There was, I watched actually a documentary of this guy who jumped over the Great Wall of China on his skateboard. And he said, anytime I do a big jump, and he's done many big jumps, I'm terrified that my body freezes, it doesn't want to do it, and I have to just get past that. Yeah, it's like when you're skydiving, you have to get past that initial thing that's trying to hold you back, because that's like a physiological response. Even if like you want to do something, your body freezes up, right? Fear on a very basic biological level is going to be present, but then you go past that fear and you step through it, right? And you move into the fearlessness. You say, this fear is limiting, and it's not, it feels like a wall, but it's not, it's a tunnel. I can go through that fear. And then there's experiences in life on the other side of it. And oftentimes in our lives, we take that fear as an actual wall. Our fears become limiting factors in our lives. We get stuck and trapped in our fears. We think that is as far as we go. But once you go through your fear and go through it again and through it again, you realize that it's like a tunnel, that you can move through it. I actually used to be terrified of speaking in public. And the way that I got over that fear is that my teacher, he sat me down in front of a big group, and he said, gave me the mic, and he said, like, share. And I didn't know what to say. I was looking down, I was kind of shaking. I said a couple words, I gave him the microphone. He was kind of like laughing to himself, and then he said, yeah, and this brings us to the point of practice and meditation. And the point of practice and meditation is, and then he gave me the mic again, and I was like, I don't know what the point is. And he said, it doesn't matter, talk. And he just threw me in the deep end again and again and again. And I was terrified, and I was angry at him, and I was like embarrassed and ashamed. But I did it, and I talked, and then the next time I did it, it was easier, and then it was easier. And then I started leading meditations by myself, then I started leading retreats, then I started speaking in front of large groups, and it was okay because I had made that experience, and I saw it's possible for me to speak and share and connect. And I realized at the beginning, because I was so afraid, I couldn't even make eye contact with people. I was so stuck in myself. But once I started doing it more, I realized that I could actually look at the people and see them in their eyes and connect to them. And I saw that when I was afraid, when I looked around the room, all I could see was my fear. When I went through the fear and I could actually connect to the people, I suddenly saw love. Yeah, I was suddenly getting connection. I was suddenly feeling people. right? And I was suddenly a part of a community. And I realized that I had actually felt inside of myself very lonely, not very confident, unsure of myself. And by going through that fear in public and presenting myself and sharing, it started breaking through that feeling of isolation that I had on a personal, social level, because I didn't think that I was worth presenting. I didn't think that I had anything inside to give. And through making that experience, through moving through that fear, I was suddenly getting the feelings of connection that I had always wanted. And this is really crazy, but sometimes the thing that you want is lying just through that fear. Sometimes the thing that you want the most in life is lying on the other side of your biggest fear. And sometimes those things are directly connected. And that's where this risk, this taking a chance, this going for it, this going through it comes into play. Sometimes you just have to take a chance, and maybe it's gonna crash and burn and fail miserably, but then at least you know that you tried. And then you can also change your strategy and try again. The difference between success and failure is that a failure stops and a success keeps going. That a successful person has stood up one more time than they've fallen down. That's the only difference, is that you keep trying and you end on a yes instead of a no. That's all there is to it. So moving through things in life, it often takes that courage to try something new, to try a new way, to love yourself enough to try a new way to get your own happiness, to get your own connection to life, to break through, to get your strength. Yeah, that courage is an act of self-love, a deep act of self-love to break through. And I've made that again and again in my life, that realization, that experience of jumping into a new path, into a new way of life, into a new place, and realizing that again and again and again, by putting myself into things that are completely new, it opens up all these new doors. I learn so much, I grow so much, and I actually become deeply happier as a person in myself because of my world of experience has opened. And that's super important for me personally. That's my path. Yeah, and I know each of you has a different path, like I was saying before, but I bet on your own path there are still things that you're afraid of. Right? There's still maybe places you're afraid of going in yourself, actual locations, in friendships, in relationships, hobbies, things you want to try out, things you want to do, parts of yourself that you're holding back. Yeah, because you're afraid of something. And the freedom, when you can finally express yourself, when you can say who you are, when you can show who you are, when you can fully kind of feel that I am feeling, and it feels stable and happy and settled. It's beautiful and it's important and it's priceless, and it's also part of the path. Yeah, so even again, the Buddha, he said that happiness is important on the path of meditation. Unless you are feeling embodied and happy and full in yourself, if you try to relax, if you try to concentrate, if you try to let your mind drop and settle, it's going to go to all those places that are unfulfilled. That the unfulfillment is what keeps the mind going. It keeps the mind searching, wanting more, wanting something else, because it doesn't feel okay right here. Why doesn't our mind feel okay right here? Because we're not allowing ourselves to fully be here, because we're locking down parts of ourselves out of shame, out of guilt, out of fear, out of insecurity, out of social norms, out of who we think we should be, our own striving, our own valuing of ourselves, our own judging of ourselves. Yeah, that we're not allowing ourselves to be fully alive. So where do we take that energy? We take it into the mind. That's why people have daydreams. That's why you have all these thoughts and projections and things you wish you could do or things you wish you could say. Better or for worse, maybe you want to punch somebody in the face in your mind. Yeah, but what is that really about? It's that you're not allowing yourself to express. Yeah, so really seeing that every time the mind is trying to run away, it's because the mind is unhappy with this moment. And if you look at a lot of the deep unhappinesses of the mind, they come from that place of you not allowing yourself to fully be here. You not allowing yourself to take the chance to really be happy, to go for it, to break through the fears, to break through the uncertainties, the insecurities, and to give yourself a chance to find the happiness that frankly you want and frankly you deserve. Yeah, because why else are we here? We take this life so seriously. We take all these things so seriously. But there's a lot of things that we're not taking seriously, like the fact that your lifetime is limited, the fact that you will die someday, the fact that like no matter how bad it is here, it's only that bad. Yeah, so we often don't take chances because we're afraid of doing things. You know, when I was in middle school, I was like afraid of asking out a girl because maybe she'd reject me. You know, and as you get older, you just laugh at stuff like that because you say, you know, I could have had a chance at being happiness. The worst that happens is they say no, and then you go, okay, I'm going to find a different person. But instead we hold on to that. And then maybe like some people I know like 30 years later are like, oh, I wish I asked out that girl in high school or something. You know, we carry it around. We carry these resentments, these regrets, these things that we didn't do around with us, and we're upset at ourselves. When I said resentment, a lot of us, we resent ourselves. Where a lot of us are angry at ourselves for not really giving ourselves that chance to be happy to do what we want. So we carry around all these missed opportunities, and we don't realize that even till today we're still missing opportunities. We're still doing the same thing, and that energy builds and builds and builds, and we feel heavy, we feel depressed, and we feel angry actually at ourselves. So also forgiveness is super important in this. So not only do we need to forgive other people in our lives, but a lot of us really need to forgive ourselves. Turning forgiveness inwards. Forgiving yourselves for not doing everything that you really needed to do, everything you wish you had done to yourself and for yourself. Really turning forgiveness inward. It's a really important and a really powerful tool because you understand yourself and it allows you to start letting things go. Forgiveness, it's like an all-purpose cleaner of the mind and the heart, right? If you can forgive things, it allows a lot of things to kind of to fade away, to be let go, to be resolved, and to be opened, and to be freed and liberated and released. Yeah, so we can forgive ourselves into that. And another thing we can do is by taking risks, by trying out new things, it's part of the healing process. It's an active healing process because we're really going for it. We're going for our happiness. We're trying things out. We're not letting ourselves settle in this precious small life that we have. We're really trying to make the most of it. And, you know, I'm doing that myself here. This is what this is about for me. Like, I'm not here to say like, hey, look, I'm on the beach and you're not, and I'm taking photos. You know, I'm right now on a journey of trying to find my true happiness, and I'm taking you guys along with me. It just so happens that I started making these videos as this journey started. So you're getting these little insights into this process that I'm going through. But this also, for me, it should be serving as an example for others. To say, look, I'm doing it, right? I'm looking for my happiness. I'm really going for it. I'm jumping into the nothingness, and I'm going to find, and I've been finding. And I want everyone to know that you guys, you can do it too. This is really for everybody. Yeah, anybody can do this. Nobody's too far gone. Nobody's too deep in. Even little steps, even little pieces of it, everybody can make. You can always make little steps towards your happiness, towards your freedom, towards your fullness. Yeah, and then if you do practice, when you meditate, yeah, even when you're going to bed at night, you'll find that you're much happier, much more peaceful. You feel more complete, and you feel good about yourself, and you feel good about your life. And it's like, it's a harmony, right? Everything's in harmony, and it's beautiful. So yeah, I wanted to give you that today, and just share from myself what I'm doing, what I'm going through. Hope that it inspires you too. We'll meditate in a moment. It's going to be nice. Here, take a last look around. This place is so beautiful. It's like a meditation right there. Okay. See you in the meditation. Thank you.